Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Sayfie here with Wright, our analyst, former Michigan basketball player as well. And obviously, we're going to be talking about the Michigan Wolverines, who are in their fifth straight Sweet 16, one of two Big Ten teams, along with Purdue, to make the second weekend of the tournament. Michigan, man, just continues to carry the Big Ten, it feels like, in the NCAA tournament over the last couple of years, and the streak of five straight Sweet 16s, a Big Ten record. Only 4 or 5 other teams have done that, so pretty impressive stuff there. Going back to John Beilein and then Juwan Howard now 5-1 in NCAA tournament games since he took over. We'll talk about the Wolverines beating Colorado State and Tennessee, but just a crazy weekend and of basketball. It really started, I thought, Wednesday night with the Rutgers Notre Dame game and then Michigan game at noon on Thursday in Indy, all the way through last night's Arizona TCU overtime game. Crazy stuff. I know you were watching it probably wall to wall as well.
Yeah. That was one of the better round of 64s and round of 32s that I've seen in some time, honestly. You saw some good gameplay. You saw really good coaching. You saw where coaching won out a lot in the round of 64 and the round of 32. When you look at St. Peter's, people can say it's fluky. I'm like no, they were playing like they were the better team, and they were executing like they were the better team, the more disciplined team, the team that was much better coached, better prepared. Watching them play against Kentucky and Murray State, that was so impressive. And I kind of felt that Murray State was like, yo, all we got to do is now be San Francisco. Now we're going to go to Sweet 16 because St. Peter's is probably food. They're probably still going to be celebrating the Kentucky game. But that was just testament to a team who understood how to handle success, which I feel is kind of underestimated. Handling failure is one thing, but how do you handle something good happening to you? Do you rest on your laurels, or do you just kind of move forward? Like a team like Wisconsin, they didn't handle success very well. They had a party after they beat Purdue. And then they went 1-3 over the next 4 games, I believe. You lose to Nebraska without Bryce McGowens, and then you lose to Michigan State, and then you sneak by the toothpaste school.
Colgate,
and
yeah.
then you really get outplayed and outworked against Iowa State. Iowa State, who has 2 former Big Ten guys with Isaiah Brockington from Penn State and Gabe Kalsher from Minnesota. So those guys are probably chomping at the bit to get back at Wisconsin and end their day, especially Gabe Kalsher, because the whole Minnesota Wisconsin thing. And I think he's from Minnesota. So that's like a big thing for him.
Personal,
Yeah, for sure. And then, and then you see Michigan beating Tennessee, and all of a sudden people are like, oh, the Big Ten's not overrated. Then you see 4 straight Big Ten teams lose the next day, one after the other. Houston, Illinois, that was a good game. And it's a 6-point game. I believe RJ Melendez gets a steal, gets a dunk, gets called for one of the worst techs that I've ever seen in my life. That kind of after that, the wheels, something good happened, but then the wheels kind of fell off. It kind of took the air out the building. From that moment, I believe they were minus 11. So that was a huge play. Ohio State fought Villanova for as long as they could. Couldn't hold serve. Michigan State was up by 5 with 4 minutes to go, and Duke just found ways for their talent to just overcome everything. Then we just talked about Wisconsin, but then you have the Purdue game where I just felt Purdue just had runs at the right time, and they actually went down there in the second half and came back and came storming back. And Jaden Ivey was super impressive. Man, talk about a dude who's working on his draft stock. I mean, his draft stock to me went through the roof because everybody knows that he has the goods, right? But for him to not force and for him to trust his teammates to play 4-on-3 for a few seconds just says that, hey, this dude just cares about winning. The analysts during halftime were like, yeah, I'd be going 0 for 8 because I'm like, look, all he cares about is winning. He doesn't care about how many shots he gets or anything like that. And the dude took over and picked the spots in the second half where he should and moved the ball when he should. And he ended up taking 7 shots for like 18 points. Like, dude controlled that entire game. Trevion Williams had a really good game off the bench. But what Michigan did was very impressive. You're playing a Colorado State team, and you have to guard David Roddy. A lot was depending on Musa, in my opinion, what Musa did. But really, it was Musa's defense, Brandon Johns' defense. Like I said, people are going to rip on Brandon Johns. I know it's fun, but the dude does not get scored on a lot. Like what he doesn't do offensively, like it's a trade-off on the defensive end. So when he does score, he's going to be a plus because his man's not going to score on the other end. What Musa and Brandon Johns did with Roddy was an outstanding job. I think it was like 13 points, like 11 shots, 1 for 6 from 3, I believe, off the top of my head. Yeah. I don't have it in front of me.
Something like that, one of 5.
Yeah, it's something like that. But then like Eli Brooks, what he did with Isaiah Stevens was remarkable. Yeah. Caleb Houston, his work on John Tonja in that game, holding him to 1 for 9. I believe their top 3 scorers were held to 23 points. And that's the game to me. That's the game. And on the other end, you had whoever Isaiah Stevens didn't guard, whoever number 3 was on, they went after. And I love that. Whether it was Eli attacking them or Frankie attacking them, they did such a good job of getting to the paint, getting buckets, or getting to the paint and finding someone. Outstanding job there. And I thought, Hunter was Hunter. As long as Hunter's Hunter, I think Michigan's okay. And Hunter was Hunter in both games for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and 48 points from Hunter Dickinson in 2 games, the most by a Michigan player in 2 NCAA tournament games, or the first 2 NCAA tournament games the first weekend since Juwan Howard in 1994. And Juwan was going off in that tournament, obviously carrying Michigan to the Elite Eight before they lost to Arkansas. But fantastic performances by him. You mentioned Frankie Collins, and it's like thinking about, how he was kind of the turning point once they decided, like, all right, we're going to go with Frankie. We're not going to try to go with a little more Eli at point and things like that without Devontae Jones there. We're going to roll with him. He has his personal 5-0 run at the end of that first half. And then he did kind of realize, like you were talking about, I can attack these guys and get to the rim. It's not a team with shot blockers on the back end. So they felt like they could get there. They were more aggressive in the second half. I thought Juwan Howard and the staff did a great job all weekend. It started with making some of those adjustments against Colorado State. And then the job they did, I thought, against Tennessee. With that game plan as well. And it was like at different points in the game, they pushed the right buttons. They went to zone late because Tennessee was, getting to the rim and really doing a good job sealing off guys. And Kennedy Chandler was fantastic. But, Michigan goes with zone. I really like the way they limited some 3-point looks as well. Completely took Vescovi out of the game. I thought, he went 1 for 5 from 3, and that's a guy who shoots a lot of those. They only attempted 18 threes. They average over 24 per game. So I thought the coaching job from Juwan Howard and company to lead a shorthanded Michigan team back to the Sweet 16 with tough draws. You're playing a 6 seed and a 3 seed, and now you're here, and you get Villanova on Thursday. It's another tough, they have probably the toughest region maybe outside of the West. And you could argue that it's even tougher than the West, which has Gonzaga, Arkansas, Texas Tech, and Duke. But when you look at Arizona, when you look at Houston, who is criminally underseeded as a 5, and then Villanova as a 2, who could probably win it all as well, it's going to be a tough road. But just going back to that Tennessee game real quick, You had the individual performances from Hunter and Eli, who had 23 points and took over late. He had the Xavier Simpson hook shot, which was just fantastic. And then you had an outlier type of, bench spark type performance from Terrence Williams, who had the 2 putbacks, each of them tying the game late. He hit the 2 free throws. And, kind of a validation of the work that I feel like Terrence has put in and the improvement he's made since he's gotten on campus. But, what else did you see, I guess, from that Tennessee game? And those individual performances, man, were those 2 of the best you've, seen from a Michigan team in a tournament to keep their team alive?
T. Will's always ready. And that's been testament from day one. Like when he was a freshman, like remember that Oakland game?
Yep.
That Michigan almost lost last year?
Yep. Went to overtime.
He didn't play the entire game. And then he gets put in the last few minutes to go make plays. And he, like a veteran, he made the right passes, made the right plays. He was getting to the basket. And he was doing so many things. And that's kind of who he's been. That's kind of who he's been. If you want to play in 5 minutes or 20 minutes, he's going to be ready for whatever. I do think that there was a game. When did he go 0 for 10, 0 for 11, Caleb? Was that against Ohio State?
Yeah, it was against Ohio State. Yep.
Yeah, he was like 0-10, 0 for 11. So in that game, I thought that was one of Caleb's better games. I thought that he was so good, still being aggressive. He took like one bad shot, but like he was so good with his attention to detail and what he was doing as a defender. And he was getting deflections. He was out there and he was still dialed in. I think this last Tennessee game, I didn't see that. Like yes, he was over, but I didn't see the in-between stuff. I didn't see the intangibles, right? When that's happening, I think you got to go to T a little bit more.
A little quicker, yeah. And they didn't bring him in until there was under 7 minutes or under 8 minutes to go, excuse me. And, they were down 6. Now, I thought Caleb defended decently well. And, and I know they hit some of those pull-up jumpers, but I thought he defended decently well. And then it ended up being where Terrence was in for Musa at the end too, which I thought worked because Musa had a pretty good first half, but he missed a lot around the bucket and was struggling a little bit. And I thought it was the right move. They tried pulling Caleb for a little bit and then decided to end up bringing him back in for Musa. But
that was for spacing 100%.
Yeah.
Because I think putting T-Well in the game, now you have more of a perimeter-oriented forward in the game, someone else who could give Hunter a bit more space too.
Especially when your big guy was – like when Musa was missing those around the basket, it's like you might as well, get your spacing, out of –
Yeah.
It's like if you're going to have the big lineup and he's not making them,
Right, exactly. And just being able to execute a lot better. And Tennessee at that point was only scoring one way. That was off of turnovers. So having another perimeter player is going to help you take care of the ball, right? Because I don't think they had maybe 2 turnovers in the last several minutes. And that was the biggest thing. Them not with these live ball turnovers and then Tennessee just gets a wide open layup. They had so many points just wide open just because
free
they
points.
Just stole the ball. Bunch of free points. And, outside of that, I mean, Michigan outplayed them thoroughly.
I thought so too. That's why it was – you look at that first half, you're down 5. It's like, man, Michigan felt like they were executing better other than their turnover possessions. If you look at their points per possession on when they didn't turn it over, and I know you can't really do that, but in terms of the looks they were actually getting, when they produced looks, I thought they were good and they were knocking them down for the most part. And then, of course, in the second half, they cleaned things up a little bit, as you said. I don't think they turned it over really once Terrence came back in, maybe once or twice. And there was kind of that stretch before he came in where they were starting to revert back into that. Tennessee took the lead, and it felt dicey, and it was dicey at that point, but they were obviously able to pull it out. and like I said, going to zone late, I thought helped as well for Michigan. Tennessee had some open looks, but I thought it was key that Michigan kind of got them out of their rhythm early, and we're running them off the line. You could tell those closeouts where we're running all the way up into you, and you can maybe try to drive it past. We saw some pull-ups and things like that, and some cuts that were good by Tennessee, but Michigan was not going to get beat by the three. Didn't let them get in a rhythm early, and it paid off late when the good looks did come, I thought. People were saying like, oh, it wasn't really the defense. It was just they missed their shots. But I thought it was all part of a kind of a bigger plan there. And then late you had to adjust and take some things away in the paint, got some open looks for them. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have, the way that Michigan's defense is designed, they're going to give up the mid-range too. They don't want you to shoot threes, and they don't want you to get to the cup. And that's kind of what you saw. And so when they did get a three, it's almost like, oh, crap, I got to take the most advantage of it. Now that's like another layer that they have to get through to even like make the shot. And that's why you see a team go 0 for 9 in the second half. It's because they've been limiting those looks, limiting those touches. Maybe if they did get up another 6 or 7 attempts, they make a couple, now we have a different game.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, and the mental hurdle part of it. So now, Michigan advances after Hunter Dickinson chucks the ball up into the air, which was just a fitting way for that game to end. Crazy scene there in Indy. And by the way, you mentioned just a great atmosphere all weekend. Chris Ballas and I were at the St. Peter's versus Kentucky game, which was stunning. We were sitting about row 10, and Cal, man, no answers from him at all. And then the atmosphere for the Murray State, both the Murray State-San Francisco game and the Murray State-St. Peter's game, unbelievable. But like Chris Ballas was saying, and he's covered a lot of these, that the Tennessee-Michigan game was kind of an Elite Eight type of feel, and it was a great atmosphere in terms of atmosphere, Elite Eight feel, and it was great. Michigan moves on and could potentially play in the Elite Eight with a win over Villanova. This is going to be tough, obviously, when you get to this round. Villanova is a team that could easily get to the Final Four, could potentially cut down the nets. An elite offensive team, shoot a lot of threes, make a lot of threes. Defense is good, not great, and they don't have a ton of size on the back line, and I feel like that's where Michigan has to take advantage there. They don't have anyone in the rotation over 6'8". They allowed Zach Edey to do really well early on in the season when they played. Clayton with their big guy. They scored a lot on the interior in those 3 games. They actually played again in the Big East tournament. So I feel like Michigan has an advantage there. At the same time, this Michigan defense is going to be really, really tested because Villanova with Colin Gillespie and Justin Moore have one of the top ball screen attacks in the country, pick and roll, extremely efficient. And what they do is post up a lot to get open, kick out threes as well. They post up almost as much as anyone in the country. Don't necessarily score as much out of it, although they're efficient there, but they get kick out threes. Like I said, this is, they take care of the ball. This is, a Villanova offense that you would expect to see. I guess, what are your thoughts on the Wildcats?
I think Frankie, Devontae, and Eli got to have the best game of the year. Like you said, Justin Moore's good. He's from Fort Washington, Maryland. Colin Gillespie's good. They don't play anyone under 6'3", 190.
Yep, so they have the size advantage in the backcourt for sure.
Yeah, they're a big team. Like, even though they don't have anybody over 6'8", they play a bunch of small forwards. And they have a big point guard. And they will post you repeatedly, even if it's not working. Like, they will post you, like, repeatedly, because that's how they get their looks. That's how they get their open threes. I'm curious how they're going to defend, honestly, because we don't have, Devontae and Frankie are bigger. Like Devontae is 205, 200.
Right, they're built a little bit.
Yeah, Frankie's also a bit built, and he's athletic. I am really curious what they're going to do defensively. And I'm very, very curious. And I I don't even have an answer. I have to go see some Villanova losses and see what those teams did to expose a lot of what they like to do. But I'm gonna have to find some losses with teams who have smaller guards, not bigger guards, because that's also a thing that you have to also acknowledge. Villanova is a very good team, very very good team, and they're the best team out of the Big East. Although they didn't win the conference, I don't think. But
No, yeah, Providence. Yep.
yeah, but they're the best team in that league for sure. Michigan's going to have to hit shots offensively. They're going to have to attack their guards on that end too, because even though their guards are good in the pick and roll, I think Frankie and Devontae is too, and they do a great job of getting into the paint and finding people. This is another game where they shouldn't be afraid to go with both Frankie and Devontae. Eli had a great game last game, and it was much needed. But for Eli to be good down the stretch, I think they are going to need to allow him to get a little bit of rest, because I think the depth now at the backcourt position is way better. Like Frankie this year, man, from the first few games to where he's at now, his development and his improvement has been so good. It's been so good, and that's going to allow Michigan to have multiple options down the stretch, whether that's sitting Frankie or sitting Eli or sitting Devontae or playing all three. That's also, a casualty of that is Kobe Buffkin not getting as many minutes now, because you've seen how well Frankie has done. But yeah, very long non-answer from me, Clayton. I'm sorry. But I'm just sitting here just going through all the matchups in my mind. And, Michigan has got to play. They have to attack Villanova similarly to the way they attacked Colorado State and Tennessee, because neither one of those teams wanted to really play fast. I think Villanova is going to be another one of those teams where on misses and turnovers, push the ball, because they're going to be sound defensively, disciplined defensively. It's almost like if you don't want to face a 2-3 zone, you beat it up the court. This is very similar to where, hey, get out in transition, do your thing, have fun, move the ball, play out of it. If they don't have to run plays and let the guys hoop, then that's how you hoop. At this point in time, it's all about just winning. Just find a way to win. You find the weakness, exploit it, win, and move on.
I think Michigan's offense is at its best when it plays with a higher tempo. Hunter can get in deep, when their defense isn't necessarily set, or you get that when, the guard's at kind of a 3/4 type of, not quite a sprint, but, kind of running down the floor, and you get a pick and you're just into that thing. You're already moving fast and they're kind of having to adjust. So I agree with that. And man, Villanova slows it down, like you said. And, I was looking at their numbers. They've only had 27 or so transition possessions, because they just don't really allow teams to get out and run. So Michigan take advantage of some of those misses. Another key stat I think for this game is, man, yeah, you're going to have to defend that 3-point line, try to limit some of those looks and do all that. But kind of like the Tennessee game too, you're going to need to just get some misses. Villanova is 5-4 when they make 6 or less threes. They're going to attempt nearly 26 per game. The attempts are, I think 19 was the fewest they've had in a game this year. Maybe there's one outlier out there. They're going to get their looks up in all likelihood. But you need to contest those as good as you can if you're Michigan, and try to go with kind of a similar game plan that you had against Tennessee, because they're not big on the interior. But it's going to be really interesting. I think Eli Brooks against Colin Gillespie is going to be a fascinating kind of a matchup. I think Eli will spend a lot of time guarding him. And, those two played in the national title game. Colin played a little more than Eli. They played again the next year, that next November, against each other at Villanova. these guys have really gotten their teams to these spots. And I know Michigan has had a lot of help from Hunter Dickinson and whatnot, but Colin Gillespie's had some help too. And that backcourt matchup, I think, will be really, really interesting.
Villanova was also the number 2 team for Eli as well.
That's right. They recruited him super hard.
Ohio State wanted him and Villanova, which is hilarious. So people were like, I remember like this was yesterday. It was it was 2016, 2017, and someone hits me up on Twitter. This Eli guy, he's not even ranked, and da, 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 da. Do you know anything about him? I'm like, I don't know anything about him, but Ohio State and Villanova wants him, and they don't miss with guards.
Right.
So I'll take him.
Especially Villanova. If Jay Wright wants him and John Beilein and honestly, John Beilein has a lot of credibility too. It's like if Beilein wants him,
Right. Exactly. Exactly. It's almost like in football, like, hey, if Wisconsin offers an O lineman somewhere,
or Iowa,
go offer them too, and then go see if they're any good. It's just
it's a good point. And yeah, man, perfect fits for their team. Like Colin Gillespie when he's healthy, the last few years has really made that team go. Eli Brooks has been so big, and I know early in his career, people were, he was kind of the scapegoat and whatnot, and a punching bag.
It's Michigan.
Yeah, exactly. But
everyone's been the scapegoat.
But they come around on him now, I think. If not last year, this year, and if not this year before Saturday night, because he was obviously outstanding. You look at the rest of the South region there that'll be down in San Antonio, and by the way, rematch of national title game, which was also in San Antonio in 2018. Arizona and Houston. I mean, Arizona's my national champion pick. Houston, I mean, probably could have been a 2 seed. Like, they're the number 2 team on KenPom. They have a top 10 offense, a top 15 defense. That's kind of the formula to win a national title. I think that's going to be a really good game. I think that is going to be, just a rock fight type of game. Your thoughts on the rest of the region there if Michigan were to get by, or even if it ends up being Villanova?
In my opinion, it is I know there was chalk pretty much in the Gonzaga region.
Yep.
But I would switch with Texas Tech in a heartbeat. I do think Arizona is the favorite. Did you see the TCU game last night?
Yeah.
Really good game, right?
Great game.
Benedict Mathurin, like, if they lose easily.
Yeah.
If that dude doesn't just go nuts. And they still should have lost because the dude got fouled at half court. But
terrible.
But Arizona, Houston, I can see that game going either way, honestly. But if you're gonna have a number 1 in your region, it's one that you've already played. I don't mind that piece because you already played them. They're gonna think you're food, right? And then you go at them, right? Then you have Houston. Houston's still salty about Jordan Poole. They're still salty about it. Like I would see like a Jordan Poole Warriors highlight, and then you see some Rockets fan like F Jordan Poole. That shot in 2018 gives me nightmares. It's almost like Illinois in 1989, right?
Yep.
Some things just stick with you forever. Kind of like Louisville and Luke Hancock, and even this Villanova team and Dante DiVincenzo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like some guys just are gonna just stick in your mind forever. Houston's gonna be very good defensively. That game against Arizona is gonna be a lot of fun. But I think Michigan's in the second toughest bracket, I'd say. I think the toughest one is the Gonzaga, Duke, Arkansas, Texas Tech one, but I would have still liked that for Michigan still. I think Texas Tech comes out of there after looking at the teams and how they are, I think Texas Tech's going to beat Duke, and I think they're going to beat Gonzaga or Arkansas. But what's nice about Michigan's bracket is the only person in the region that I thought that can guard Hunter is Coloca.
Yep.
And I'm like, hey, if this team can get to an Elite Eight and then just fight it out, really fight it out, then let the best team win. But you see Colorado State, no one can guard Hunter. Tennessee, tough matchup. Best team in the SEC, in my opinion, nobody who can guard Hunter. This game coming up, Villanova, they're going to throw some double teams, but still one-on-one, nobody can guard Hunter.
Right.
Next game in the Elite Eight, Houston, nobody who can guard him. Arizona does have someone who can guard him, and who gave him fits in that first round. So, but Hunter wasn't really shooting the ball against Arizona like that.
Yep.
So what's going to happen when now Hunter shows that second layer to his offense?
It's going to be the Purdue game plan against Arizona if you get that, where Hunter was doing a lot of pick and pop, and we saw it against Tennessee, even though they're not a team that's super strong on the interior with post defense, but Hunter hit
that
3
Serbian
threes.
Dude was pretty big though. He was 7 feet 250.
Yeah, he was.
He was picking popping on him.
Yeah.
He was picking popping.
Yeah, he was making him move a little bit, but just the way he was able to still score inside was obviously it.
So you were at the Tennessee Michigan game.
Yep.
Did you see when the Serbian dude did like the Hunter Small thing?
No.
Live? Okay, so like, when someone scores, sometimes
Hunter does it all the time.
You're right, exactly. So the Serbian dude scored and did the small thing, and then Hunter dunked on him the next possession.
And then Hunter was celebrating every time he scored again.
He got a foul.
I did not see that.
People on the timeline were like, yo, thank you for pissing off Hunter.
Right.
Thank you for pissing off our best player. Thank you for pissing off our All-American.
The pettiest player maybe in college basketball. Thank you for pissing him off.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And then did you see at the end when Hunter said something to the other team's, either the cheerleader or the mascot?
Mm-mm.
That's like the only bad part about being at the games live. It's like you miss so
I know
many
you don't get the like cut in, zoomed in
man.
shots and things like that. Yeah.
Oh, hold on. I'm about to send this to you. I said Hunter is a menace. Let's see if I can find it. I'm about to send this to you so you can watch it. Oh man, so good.
But that's Hunter, and while you're doing that, like his quote, okay, you already sent it. His quote after the game of like those people that were hating on us better watch us next weekend. Yeah, who's he talking to there?
He's either talking.
I think it was the mascot.
It might be the mascot.
Or the male cheerleader who then shrugged after and was like, what the hell?
Right, and then like look at the girl's face. Her mouth is like wide open, like, oh my God. And like all the cheerleaders are like pointing at him.
She can't believe it.
It's so good. It's so good. Hunter's a character, man. Hunter is a character.
Yeah.
Hunter's a character. He's very comfortable in his own skin, and you can always appreciate someone like that.
No doubt. And that's why, man, he's the fan favorite. And if he comes back for another year and surprises or whatever, based on what he was saying preseason, not only is this team going to be probably pretty good again, but they're going to be fun to watch with him in even more of a leadership role. And speaking of Hunter Dickinson and what Eli Brooks did on Saturday, it's interesting because I said it before the tournament too. Like, this is an 11 seed in Michigan, but they're playing better than that in the second half of the season. So you could argue, all right, what are they, as good as an 8 or a 7? But then also when you add in the factor of having potentially the best player on the floor when you're playing a Tennessee, right? Kennedy Chandler was great, but I would say Hunter Dickinson's a better basketball player at this point. Kennedy Chandler played very, very good, for him. But Hunter still had a better game. You're playing Villanova. You could argue Colin Gillespie, what he does for that team and his value. I think you could put him right there. But Hunter's also been an All-American as well, and might be the best player on the floor against one of the better teams in the country. I know Arizona, it won't be the case because they have Ben Mathurin, but there's something to be said about individual performances that can lift a team. And I know there's so many things that go into winning tournament games, but if you have a guy that can just go the hell off like that, and if you have Eli Brooks, who's played, that was his 15th NCAA tournament game on Saturday night, that can help you win a game, even when Tennessee, sure, they had more talent, more athleticism, better shooting, but Michigan won. And you kind of saw that throughout the first weekend, and you see it every year. But some of those individual performances, even look at St. Peter's and that shooter that they have, Air Dart or whatever, or Ed Art, unbelievable. And then obviously other performances from other guys. But that's why Michigan, and there's 4 double-digit seeds in the Sweet 16 as well. You saw a number 1 seed go down because they didn't have some of their best guys, Baylor, and still almost winning that game against North Carolina. But
25, dog.
Yeah,
dog. Come on. Did you watch that game?
Yes.
It was ridiculous.
Insane.
UNC's up 25. Was that a flagrant 2 on Brady Manick?
No, it should have been a flagrant 1, not an ejection.
Or like a dead ball technical foul.
Right.
That was ridiculous.
And it was like a 38-13 run after he got ejected.
Yes. It was wild. It was absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. And then they got it down to 16 with like 6 minutes left. And someone goes, I think Baylor has one more run. And I was like, down 16, what's the worst that could happen, right? Right? Just like sarcastically. Yep. And then, of course, you see, man, that was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And then they were able to go into overtime without Caleb Love, without Brady Manick, and go in there and still win that game, which was for me, that was absolutely incredible. Because a team just went plus 25 on you in 11 minutes. Like that's beating you over plus 2 per minute. Like that's wild.
That's crazy. And wild. When how like the buzzer sounds, you're going to overtime, you run over to your bench. One team and one bench is extremely happy to be going to overtime, and the other one isn't, and you have no momentum on your side. And to pull that out, and that was a war of attrition type of game with guys not only getting ejected but fouling out left and right, as you mentioned, Caleb Love. No, that was fantastic. Just one of the outstanding games of that first weekend. Do you have any kind of tweaks to maybe your Final Four now that we have a Sweet 16? I had Iowa going, brutal for me, but I thought it was their year, but you never
say
can.
5-star go to 5-star. We said Fran go to Fran.
That's true. Fran. I mean, sometimes you just can't trust these guys. Rick Barnes, look at him.
Yeah, Rick Barnes going to Rick Barnes.
And Juwan Howard is proving to be a good tournament coach as well. A 2-day turnaround against that Tennessee team I thought was really tough. But any other bracket takeaways or looking at who your Final Four is? I still have Arizona, UCLA, and Gonzaga in, but I feel like Texas Tech too is a sleeper as well, like you mentioned.
I honestly think Texas Tech is going to go to the Final Four out of that bracket, and Purdue is gonna sell, right? You think? Like Purdue is gonna blow it, right?
Against St. Peter's, or
are they gonna blow it? No, in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, maybe against either North Carolina or UCLA.
They're gonna find a way to blow that. They're gonna find a way to blow it. And I don't know how, but it's gonna happen.
Right.
And I want them to do well. I want them to do very well.
I do too. I'm rooting for them.
I'm rooting for Purdue. I'm a big Matt Painter guy. And you know who they remind me of, Purdue?
Who's that?
2018-19 Michigan. They remind me of them.
Yeah.
Really good team. Should have won the Big Ten. Didn't. Lost in the Big Ten tournament. championship actually too. They got over the hump of Chris Beard, but they're in the Sweet 16 against a team that they should roll over. Let's be real. St. Peter's has been blown out once this year, one time, and I believe that was to St. John's back in November or early December. I forget.
Okay.
But I was looking at this last night where I'm looking at these scores from St. Peter's. You're a really good team. You're a really well-coached team if you don't get blown out.
Yeah.
They have one blowout this year.
That's a well-coached team. He's going to get a bigger job coming up.
Oh, that's Seton Hall. Like
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, Seton Hall, done deal. That's done. Because Willard I think he's off to Maryland, right?
Yeah, he's going to Maryland. Yep.
Yeah. So Willard to Maryland's been that's been out there for a while. But going to Seton Hall, I was, people were like, hey, how much can to get Steve Peichel over here? I'm like, y'all, Steve Peichel's not going over there, bro.
No. He's signed now through forever. 30
years. He should be.
Yeah.
He's an outstanding coach. He's an outstanding coach. But yeah, Shaheen Holloway, that dude, just watching them play is like watching Beeline Light, right?
Yeah.
Super disciplined, except a really good defensive team too. But whatever they do on offense, they do on defense. Mm-hmm. Super disciplined. They're very well coached, very well prepared. Their game management is amazing. I just can't wait to see what St. Peter's tries to do against Purdue. I want to see their game plan. I think Purdue has got St. Peter's won't be able to emulate and practice and walkthroughs some of the things that Purdue does. They can't emulate the best guard in the NBA draft.
Right.
You can't emulate that. You can't emulate 7'4", 65% shooting from the floor, Zach Edey, right? You can't emulate a 6'10", 260-pound fake Hakeem Olajuwon type of dude who's a really good passer. You can't emulate all that and then having 40% three-point shooters around them. Yeah. That's the perfect, minus the decent point guard, that's the perfect basketball team. I mean, you give them a half-decent point, just half-decent. Doesn't need to be the best. You put Peyton Willis from Minnesota on that team.
Yeah.
That'll be the number one team in the country. But Final Four, I'm going to go Texas Tech. I'm going to go – I just think Arizona's going to be too much, man.
Yep.
I'm going to go Arizona, and then I'm going to go – I'm going to go Miami.
They're hot, man.
Because I think Miami matches up with both Providence and Kansas pretty well. And then you know what? I'm all in on Matt Painter. I'm going to go all in on my boy against my wishes. I'm going to go all in on Matt Painter. But deep down, I think it's going to be North Carolina.
Okay. That would be interesting. I'm just sticking to my guns with UCLA, Gonzaga, and Arizona, and then I guess I'll just go Kansas on the Midwest because Iowa's no longer there. But hey, I'm happy about having 3 out of the 4 heading into the second weekend, even though that's not a ton to write home about. But yeah, so it should be exciting. Thursday, 7:15, San Antonio, Michigan against Villanova. Then you got Houston and Arizona after that, and winner to the Elite Eight of each game. And, man, winner of that to the Final Four. Could Michigan make it back for a third time since 2013? We'll be watching that. Ant, appreciate you as always, and we'll talk to everybody next time.
Yo, Michigan has come a long way, bro.
Yeah.
This program's come a long way. Long way. We're – long way.
You've seen it firsthand.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.